Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you once again for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission, as always, is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature spanning a whole range of genres to book lovers all around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. And yes, I'm in that category, still trying to write that bestseller. I am Darren Kazago, dystopian science fiction and horror author, avid reader, and one of your co-founders and co-hosts of the Australian Book Lovers podcast, coming to you today from Ghana country.
And I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, science fiction, memoir and picture book writer, also waiting to write my bestseller, Voracious Reader, and the other co-founder and host, coming to you from a really quite a chilly Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung country.
Yes, and we are here for the spectacular episode number 89.
And that is pretty exciting. We have only 11 to go before we hit the big 100, and what a great episode we have.
Absolutely.
Really delighted.
So who did you get to talk to?
It was fantastic. We had a chat, that was the global we. So I had a delightful chat with Naomi Shippen, who many of our listeners will know is one of our regular audio book reviewers. But Naomi has her own book out, so yes, more on that later.
Well, 89, look, I'm excited that we're getting close to 100 because that champagne bottle is getting bigger and bigger, and there may be spirit bottles hiding behind it for the celebration. But it also means, this is the last 80s.
Oh, this is true.
So many cool things happened in the 70s and the 80s, and I don't know, the 90s was, it was my teenage years there too, but was it as good as 70s and 80s? I don't know. But nonetheless, would you like to know the meaning of the number 89?
Let me know the meaning, Darren.
Well, apparently the number 89 symbolises abundance, prosperity, and represents strong foundations for one's life. The number 89 is also suggested to represent brand new beginnings and positive outcomes. So there we go. Yeah, a little bit of flower power and sunshine to 89.
Yes. Well, see, I wonder, I know that is it numerology, there are cycles and 9-year cycles and 18-year cycles, and I wonder how that goes with the numbers and all those kind of things. We should get somebody on who can tell us all of that. But anyway, besides from that, what else have you got for us? Oh, I need to give you the bingo number.
Well, yes, I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat after the last couple.
Oh, well, it's really boring.
Come on.
Really
I was going to say, go out with a bang for the last of the 80s.
No. Well, 88, of course, most people will know, is Two Fat Ladies, and that was our last episode of the Wilderness Society shortlisted authors and illustrators, which is fantastic. But number 89 is just nearly there.
Oh, that's it.
That's it. How ordinary is that? So if anybody knows a better 89 number in bingo, let me know, because of course 90 is the last bingo number. So we've only got one more to go after this, Darren.
I think that statement represents, for a lot of us growing up, our first introduction to political speak. So you're in the back seat. Are we getting any closer? Nearly there.
Nearly there.
And that sentence can be used 6 hours later when you're still on the road. And you realise, hang on a second, nearly there means nothing. You're telling me to shut up.
Yeah. It's got nothing. So yes, that was a little bit ho-hum on the bingo, but such is life. Well, what else have you got for us? Tell us what happened in 1989.
Absolutely. As per our regular episodes, I'm going to jump into Australia back in 1989 just to celebrate our episode 89. I wouldn't say the most extravagant year on the calendar, but it did have some interesting milestones. So on the 1st of January, HECS was introduced along with the commencement of the Higher Education Funding Act of 1988, causing a bit of a pain for a lot of people nowadays,
definitely.
Yes, definitely a can of worms to open that discussion with. Now, the assistant in January, also the Assistant Australian Federal Police Commissioner Colin Winchester was actually shot dead in the driveway of his Canberra home by a sniper. Now, the sniper was later identified as David Harold Eastman. But yeah, it's a bit of a high-profile assassination there, which is, not a common crime in Australia. So definitely
No.
one for the books there. This is a bit interesting, just to show that some things, or the more things change, the more they stay the same. So it was in 1989, former National Safety Council boss. Now, just meditate on those words. National Safety Council boss.
Right.
Former National Safety Council boss John Friedrich was arrested in Western Australia over allegations that he defrauded investors of $237 million. He was captured 17 days after being on the run. Oops-a-daisy.
What would you do with that much money? Seriously, what was he thinking? That nobody would pick up that he embezzled $237 million in 1989?
Well, you just got to get one of those countries, don't you? And then you start your own newspaper, and then you start buying businesses back here through shell things, and you suddenly have electronic stores on the front page of every newspaper, and political parties at your whim. But I digress.
Okay, yes. Tell us what else happened.
Well, on the 20th of March, believe it or not, this made a bit of news at the time, and probably is still a bit of a, well, not a milestone, but an interesting moment in political history. Prime Minister Bob Hawke wept on national television when he was forced to, well, when he admitted, I'm not saying he's forced to admit, he admitted marital infidelity. So I guess a sign, that everyone's human, definitely, as far as the weeping part. The other part, I don't think everyone does that. But anyway, Australia's very first private tertiary institution, Bond University, opened on the Gold Coast back in 1989. This one was an interesting one too. On the 23rd of August, all of Australia's 1,645 domestic airline pilots resigned over an airline's move to sack and sue them over a dispute following a strike. So huge, huge resignation, or huge action there too. But isn't it funny that I remember the sort of mid 80s, late 80s, to fly interstate was the equivalent of, that's around the world, that was something that you save up for a year or two to just fly to interstate. So it would have been a big hit back then.
It was, and a lot of pilots and piloting families and airline families lived around our way because we're not that far from the airport. So it was a real dampener for sure. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people had to look for new jobs. It was not a great time.
Things you got to do sometimes. But speaking of taking action, on the 22nd of October 1989, the very first Pride March was held at Parliament House in Perth. And it was a rally in support of reforms to homosexual laws that were at that time being debated in the West Australian Parliament. Now, the action must have had some sort of positive impact, because on the 7th of December, the Law Reform Act of 1989, decriminalising private sexual acts between two people in the same sex in Western Australia, was passed by the Western Australian Parliament. So, and it went into effect March 1990. So, good news there about the people power. A little bit of brighter news. 10th of November, Gabby Kennard became the very first Australian woman to fly non-stop around the world. So that's pretty damn epic. Massive achievement. And Peter Carey's novel Oscar and Lucinda won the Miles Franklin Award. So, like I said, not the biggest year ever, but still, 1989. Now, I didn't get the opportunity to talk about 1988, obviously, because it was part of one of our specials. But there was one interesting fact for 1988, which I think probably eclipses all the other ones so far.
Okay.
On the 17th of January 1988, the television soap opera Home and Away was launched by Channel 7. So there we go. But as far as Australians punching above their weight, a couple of quick little inventions just to show that we are, we do help shape this global consciousness and of technology and moving the human race forward. 1988, the polymer banknote. Of course, was made by CSIRO scientists, led by Dr. David Solomon. So basically, obviously, our plastic money. So it was a joint venture between the Reserve Bank of Australia and UCB, and it brought the note into full production. And of course, those notes are now used in over 30 countries besides Australia. And chief advantages are high counterfeiting resistance and, of course, longer circulation times. And as someone who's, I was young enough but still remember the horror of washing a $1 note by accident with coins. But the old plastic notes are pretty damn good.
Yes.
Now, going back to 1988 as well, just because we missed that year, non-chemical biological pesticide was invented at the University of Adelaide. It was the world's very first non-chemical biological pesticide. That's pretty huge, yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
But not to be outdone, 1989 had a super invention. This is by Ron Warrender and Milutin Stoilovich, and they were forensic scientists at the Australian National University in Canberra. They developed what's called Unilight, which was a polylight forensic lamp, which could be set to just the right wavelength to show fingerprints, or show them up, should I say, against any background. So basically now an essential part of any crime scene investigation, and it can be used for, shows up invisible clues such as fingerprints or writing that might be scribbled over. But it can also be used to have a look at rework sections on paintings and stuff. So very interesting. So there we go. A little bit of a snapshot of 89, plus that fantastic television series in 88 and a couple of wonderful inventions from Australia. And that is the end of our 80s. So there we go.
The end of the 80s, well, some people would say good riddance to the 80s, but I think it had some good stuff.
Well, on that note, I'll just say that at the time of recording, is just 2 nights ago, we went and saw the grand opening here, at least here in the state, of Oppenheimer. And yes, I'll leave my movie review for another time, but let's just say that there was, I think I counted maybe 13 people in the cinema. However, next week we're going to see Reanimator, which is a classic 80s horror movie, and we wanted to buy some tickets for my friend's daughter, and lucky there was only 3 tickets left. It is sold out.
Lord.
So
good
here
Lord.
we are, 2023. And Reanimator's selling out, and your latest big blockbuster, so there
fizzing,
we go. So you can't mock the 80s too much there.
I had some good times in the 80s. Yes, big shoulders, big hair, and my first child. Yeah, all those things.
So just think of all those things that dropped away. Well, not the kids, but the the roller skating and the cool stuff just fell away. And what do we get to the 90s? What, parachute pants? Oh no, let's get back to the 80s.
I was busy in the 90s. I wasn't concentrating on fashion. All right, I've got some words for you, Darren.
Excellent.
And I thought that I would give us 3 book words. So these are books from words from otherworldly, first of all. So have you ever heard of the noun? This is the English one. It's oniocalasia.
No, not at all.
Right. Well, it's buying or shopping as a method of stress relief or relaxation. And I know that could be anything, but for me, books is always a method of stress relief or relaxation. So oniocalasia.
What other reasons are there? Shop? I mean, necessity is one.
Yes, that's it. As people know, we're not fashionistas, so books are the thing.
Yeah, but necessity is, at least from my, I know I like doing it by necessity, and that is I know exactly what I want. And you go in there like it's Mission Impossible and you're Tom Cruise. Yeah. Get the product, pay, get out, go. Make it a, the pleasure part, you go in and you don't know what you're going to get. And bookshop especially. Spend as much time as you want. So definitely relaxation.
There is a particular a fragrance, isn't there? All right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm giving you a noun from the Japanese, tsundoku, Tsundoku. Have you heard of that one?
I have heard of it, and I should know it, but I don't.
There you go. I won't tell you why. All right. It's buying books and not reading them. Letting books pile up unread on shelves or floors or nightstands.
Yeah, I've got huge piles that I literally just went and bought a bag full earlier today. Yeah. But that's for the library out in the writer's retreat out in the bush. So, so either if it's the end of the world or when it's time for me to sit down and relax out with the roos, I've got a whole library to read. So they will be read.
They will be read, but just not now. So tsundoku. So you need to ask Yuki if she thinks that that's what happens at your place. All right. However, you've just evidenced yourself as a bibliothecary, bibliothecary, which is a noun in English. So biblio, book. Thecary, yeah, one who collects, maintains, or cares for books.
Oh, a bibliophile is a book lover, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. And we have lots of bibliophiles who listen to our fabulous podcast. But there you go. So those are the words from otherworldly. Now, I've got one that I'm saving for last from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows by John Koenig. I've got 2 others to quickly share with you, but the other one is related to our author interview. So, Have you heard of phygophobia?
Can't say that I have.
No, well, John made it up, so probably no. So Phygophobia, from the Greek I leave, and phobia, fear. There you go. And also centrifuge. So it's a noun, and it's the fear that your connections with people will keep dwindling as you get older, that one by one you'll all go flying off the merry-go-round in wildly different directions, sailing through various classes and jobs and interests, ultimately landing in far-flung neighbourhoods where you'll hunker down with your families, plus a handful of confidants you see a few times a year, perpetually reassuring each other, we should keep in touch.
Well, I think it's a natural fear for most of us, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the old saying, life is what happens while you're making plans. And,
True.
I'll call you back in a sec. Might be a year for some mates. But that's the beautiful thing about good friends. Once you understand that that's just the rhythm and pulse of life, it can be 12 months later you finally catch up again, or it might sometimes be longer. But there's always that fear that, you reach that point where, when is that last time you have a laugh or something? The ride flings off?
I probably wouldn't say for me that it's a fear, but it's a definite thing. All right.
It's a melancholy understanding of the ebb and tide of nature.
I love that word. It's a melancholy and kind of a bittersweet thing, isn't it, really? All right. Adrenitis, which sounds like something you get in your adenoids, but no. In fact, it's the frustration with how long it takes to get to know someone, spending the first few weeks chatting in their psychological entryway, with each subsequent conversation like entering a different anteroom, each a little closer to the centre of the house, wishing instead that you could start there and work your way out, exchanging your deepest secrets first before easing into casualness until you've built up enough mystery over the years to ask them where they're from and what they do for a living.
That's a bit of an odd one.
Yeah, and adrenitis. So in ancient Roman architecture, an adrenitis is a hallway connecting the front part of the house with a complex inner atrium. One quirk of Roman houses is that all the rooms in the front have Greek names, but all the back rooms are in Latin, as if your outer self and your inner self are speaking in completely different languages.
I think that would destroy the whole thing about love, wouldn't it? The idea of romance and slowly learning about each other, and
wow, this is true.
To know someone intimately from the start and then work your way to the mysteries. Who knows? I guess relationships are different for all of us.
It does. I think as you get a little older, sometimes you get a little more reluctant to let people pass that front door because is it going to be worth it? That sounds really cruel, but sometimes you get tired.
Well, I think one of the themes that we were chatting off air about possibly talking about was evil in plain sight. So once you understand that there's evil in plain sight, it's a good survival thing to be on guard and not keep the door open as joyful as back in the early days when caution was always somewhere floating in the wind.
All right. This is my final word to share with you. This is one of my favourite words from John's dictionary, and I've actually read a blog about this a couple of years back. So this is sonder, S-O-N-D-E-R, which is the awareness that everyone has a story. So you are the main character, the protagonist, the star at the centre of your own unfolding story. You're surrounded by your supporting cast, friends and family hanging in your immediate orbit, scattered a little further out, a network of acquaintances who drift in and out of contact over the years. But there in the background, faint and out of focus, are the extras, the random passers-by, each living a life as vivid and complex as your own. They carry on invisibly around you, bearing the accumulated weight of their own ambitions, friends, routines, mistakes, worries, triumphs, and inherited craziness. When your life moves on to the next scene, theirs flickers in place, wrapped in a cloud of backstory and inside jokes and characters, strung together with countless other stories you'll never be able to see, that you'll never know exist, in which you might appear only once, as an extra sipping coffee in their background, as a blur of traffic passing on the highway, as a lighted window at dusk. I love that idea that, because of course in science fiction people might say, well, that's true, but in fact those other people don't have lives. They are only extras in your story, and when you can't see them, they don't exist. But I don't know about that. I think that, yes, we are just a bit character in some people's stories, but everyone has their own story.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think that as authors, and I'm sure many authors out there listening would agree, it's kind of a natural thing to assume stories, especially, you know, as you meet characters in life and you meet different people in different circumstances. I think you're a little bit more hyper aware of other people's stories, or if not aware of their stories, it's very easy to try and imagine or I guess, you know, put upon them stories, because that's how we create our characters. And it's also how I maintain my temper, which I don't have a bad temper, but, you know, when I'm in traffic. So mostly people around me are having medical emergencies or heading to a medical emergency, because that's the only way I can justify their driving. So and that keeps me, you know,
Okay.
so instead of getting ready to go, rah, it'll be like, no,
They're hurrying for a reason.
They've had that phone call, maybe their wife's about to have a baby, or their daughter's just broken her leg at playing hockey. I don't know, but they're in a rush to get to the hospital, and that's why. And same as when people are grumpy, but it only goes so far, though, because obviously it gets to a point where you think, even on my worst day, I wasn't this rude. So then that's the cut-off. But no, I think, you know, it is, and it can sort of really light up the world, I think, when you do take a moment and just realise everybody has a unique and stupendously amazing story. I mean, that's what is half the fun, the journey of interviewing people, isn't it? Because I just love to hear other people's story. I love to hear the journeys they've taken. But yes, and it's good. It's good to be humble too, because the world doesn't always revolve around me. And my story isn't the most important thing in the world. Shock horror.
I don't know why, Darren. Anyway, very good. All right, so those are our words. That's all about 1989. It's time for the news.
Why not? Let's jump in. Get some good news happening. Okay, a little bit of news for episode 89, and I've just got a quick couple of writing contests that I'd let all of our authors out there know about. So the first one is called the Australian Crime Writers New England Thunderbolt Prize for Crime Writing.
No, it's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a little bit. So it says wanted, dangerously talented Australian crime writers. Okay, so now the entries actually opened on the 16th of June. Entries are closing on the 29th of September. So it's for a short story of up to 2,500 words, and this is for crime fiction. First prize is $500. And there is also a New England Award, the best entry in any category by a resident of New England, New South Wales, a prize of $250. There's also a first prize of $500 for non-fiction article of up to 2,500 words, and there is also the $250 award for best entry in any category by a new unpublished writer, so emerging authors over 18 years of age. And there's also the New England Thunderbolt Prize for crime poetry for a poem up to 60 lines, and the first prize is $500. And there's also a prize of $150 for the best entry in any category by writers under the age of 18. So if you didn't get all of that, basically, there's a lot of prizes. Now, submission is that there's no limit to how many entries you can put in, but it is an entry fee of $10 per entry for an adult and $5 for youth. Basically, you can find all the information at newc, so newc.org.au/Thunderbolt Prize for Crime Writing, but you won't be able to miss it. We'll put a link in the podcast listing, but that is, or you can just Google New England Thunderbolt Prize 2023. So bit of cool stuff there, a bit of crime. We've got a lot of people out there love writing crime.
Do they ever?
Now, what we also have is the Warilla Poetry Prize. So the Poetry Prize is basically a highly recognised poetry competition, and that has been assisting poets for over 30 years. So this is the opportunity to have your work published in the Warilla Poetry Collection of Poems. So the competition opened on the 1st of June, but you've got until the 30th of September, obviously this year, 2023, to enter. Yeah, pretty massive prize. So first prize is $3,000. Okay,
Not to be sneezed at.
Not to be sneezed at. And this is under the Judith Rodriguez open section. So this is the open for anybody. First prize $3,000, second place $500. There are some other categories there, but the main one everyone should know about is that open prize, the Judith Rodriguez open section, which is basically open to everyone. So if you have got some poetry there, you'd like to write some poetry, you want to just have a shot, this is the one to look at. First prize $3,000, amazing. So that's nice and easy to find. It is Worilla, WORILLA.org.au, the Worilla Poetry Prize 2023. I like their little, quote they're using. Breathe in, experience. Breathe out, poetry. Muriel Reyesca. Anyway, the last little story contest I would like to let you know about is international one. This is Creators of Justice Literary Awards, and this is part of the International Human Rights Art Festival. So basically the Creators of Justice Literary Award is an annual international contest with a submission window open from the 1st of June to September 30, and the winners are announced by November 15. So celebrating the values that bring us together, writers may submit one poem or one essay up to 2,500 words and or one short story up to 2,500 words. So basically the idea for this contest is this Creators of Justice Literary Award features works which highlight the struggle for human rights and social justice the world over. So these may be imagined in any manner in which the writer sees fit. However, it must be based on the organisation's signature values. So they will not publish work which is based in anger or stems from an us versus them mentality. So the organisation feels strongly that all human conflict is representative of human spiritual immaturity. I like that. That's really cool. And no group of people, ethnicity or religion are immune from this energy. So there are 3 monetary prizes in each category of poetry, short story and essay, and each writer may make 1 submission in each category, total of 3 submissions per writer. Awards are as follows: first prize $150, second prize $100, third prize $50. Honourable mention, up to 5 writers in each category will also have their work published. Yeah, look, it's not going to get you shopping for helicopters if you're a winner, but something tells me that there's a huge, some good eyeballs will be getting on the work, and an opportunity to have a really good voice put out there if you're a believer, as I hope we all are, in justice, and be part of the Justice Literary Awards. And so you can find that an IHRAF, so short for International Human Rights Arts Festival. So ihraf.org, and just look for Creators of Justice Literary Awards. Again, links in on the website. But that is my news. So a little bit of writing opportunity for writers out there to sharpen their pencils, lick the ink on their pens, clickety-clack the keyboard, and try and step outside your comfort zone and do something maybe outside of your normal genre. But not only that, have a chance of winning some money. And that's my news.
There you go. There you go. That is a lot of news, and I have some more. It must be the time for competitions, because I've got a few to chat about as well. Importantly, the DITMAR Awards are open. Now, the DITMARs are DITMARS. They are peer-voted awards, generally presented at the Australian National Science Fiction Convention, and they are for excellence in science fiction, fantasy and horror by Australians. And this is, you can nominate up to August 14th for stories published in 2022. So readers, this one is for you. Get out there and look up DITMARS, grab the form, which is, it's actually a little hard to find, but if you type in DITMARS, it'll take you to the wiki.sf.org.au/ DITMAR and DITMAR rules, and there you'll find the form where you can upload a nomination for your favourite author, and more than one. All you have to prove is that you're a natural person, so not an AI, which is a good thing. It's a kind of an odd, quirky thing. So there you go. The DITMAR Awards, very important, and I know a few of our Australian authors from Australian book lovers have said happy to have themselves nominated. So don't be shy, readers, get in there. Now, number 2 news I have for you is the Hachette Prize for Young Writers. Now, this is, let me just tell you, it's a developmental award open to Australian secondary school age students across the nation and recognises writing excellence in 3 categories: fiction, creative non-fiction and poetry. And entries can include writing for readers of all or any age. It's sponsored by Hachette Australia and administered by Express Media. Shortlisted writers get the opportunity to receive mentorships from an established author. And in 2023, the writer's mentor is Pip Harry. So Pip is, of course, the author of The Little Wave, August and Jones, Are You There, Buddha? And another couple of books as well. So this is a very good event for young budding authors. You get the prize winner in every category gets $500 courtesy of Hachette. It gets their publication of their work on the Express Media website. They participate in a writing masterclass. They get Q&A with Pip Harry. They get a book prize of YA titles from Hachette. And it's open now until the 4th of August. So the entry form is on expressmedia.org.au. Programs / Hachette Australia Prize. So that is a good one for the young'uns. I thought, given that we do talk a lot about Victoria and South Australia, or those kind of things, that I would give you some slightly different events to talk about. So Writing WA has a whole stack of events, and you can go to writingwa.org/events. Between there's online courses. So how to write a romance novel that sells. Creative non-fiction with Sasoni Msimang. Fiction manuscript development group. A Perth Poetry Club. Writers in the Library with Graham Henderson is on down at the Mandurah Museum. Diane Wolfer is doing a Meet the Author event for children and families. Writing historical fiction. Same, Diane Wolfer. The online Writers Round Table is happening at the end of July. And also Meet the Author Carrie Cox, Author in Conversation Sasha Wasley. So all of these are either very late July or early August. So you can actually subscribe to their calendar. If you are in WA and you want to go and hear some of these talks and get onto some of these courses, please do that. Remembering that if you belong to one of the other writers' associations around Australia, that you do get a discount or can be treated as a member of the other writers' organisation. So that's WA. Now I've got some from South Australia for you, Darren.
Ooh.
So it's actually Poetry Month in SA, and the Writers SA is having a bit of a showcase. So the artist lineup they've got is Ellie Cobby Eckerman, Karen Wilde, David Ishaya Osu, Campbell McGuinness, Jill Jones, Nancy Bates. So that's on Thursday the 10th of August, 6 p.m. for a 6:30 start at the Wheatsheaf Hotel, 39 George Road, Thebarton. There you go. Finishes at 8:30.
Where is this Thebarton?
Thebarton? What are you going to say? What should I...
You had it right the second time, Thebarton. Because I was going to interrupt and say, well, if it's at the Wheat Shift, it's make sure you've got a designated driver for that event. But then Thebarton.
Thebarton. Well, those are the quirks.
Absolutely.
It's like people say Tallangatta, but it's actually Tallangatta. So, we all have our little quirks.
100%.
There. See, that'll give you a laugh. So there you go. So Poetry Showcase in South Australia. Get yourself over there if you are interested in hearing any of those fabulous poets. Thursday the 10th of August, and go to writerssa.org.au. Event registration is on their website. Now, I did think we've talked a little bit about the Book Fair Australia, which we know is coming up in Sydney in is it late September, early October. We'll keep talking about it a little bit because it's a really good event. But they have announced their short story competition. So they're inviting aspiring authors to write a short story featuring this year's mascot, who is Lamington. So you need to go onto the website and have a look at their mascot. And the competition is a unique opportunity to showcase your creativity. You have to read through the criteria. There's entries in age categories. Yep. So there's junior up to 12 years of age. They get 500 words. Teens 13 to 19 get 1,000 words, and adults 20 plus get 1,000 words. Entries must include the word Lamington, and all content must be suitable for readers of all ages, in brackets, i.e. keep it clean. There you go. And there's no penalty for fewer than the maximum word count. You can win Juniors, a $20 Booktopia voucher and a mascot pin. Teens, $20 Booktopia voucher and a BFA candle. And adults, $50 Booktopia voucher and an editing package valued at $60. So there you go, plus a social media post acknowledging the winner status. Which is a good
not
thing.
a Lamington to be found in that prize pack.
No, I was a bit sad that they weren't going to give you Lamingtons, but you know, such is life. There you go. So that is for short stories. So we've had Sunny for poets, Sunny for short story writers, and Sunny for the bodies over in the West. Lots of events going on over there. Sunny for science fiction, fantasy, and horror authors.
Well, there you go. What a jam-packed episode of news. So I think maybe it's time to quickly, maybe we'll go have a bit of a coffee, hit the cafe, talk about some books, and then get ready for your awesome interview with Naomi.
Sounds good.
All right. I'll see you in there. Okay, so in the Reader's Cafe, time for a little bit of relaxing, and it was a little bit sunny this morning when I was on my book hunt, and driving back over the ocean, it got very, very dark very quickly. So it's turned into an absolute winter's day. So I'm straying away. My cafe is not in the city, and it's this time it's a cabin-style cafe in the woods, you know, with the red mushrooms with the white dots growing by the doorway. And so I'm sitting down and with a big mug of, I think, just good old strong black coffee. But yeah, the fireplace is going. There's the condensation's dripping down the window, and you know, this is a pretty cool place. It makes you keep your shoes at the door. So I'm sitting in my socks only and enjoying the ambience. What about yourself?
I get to see you sitting in your socks. That's could be good. Could
Told
be
you
tragic.
it's a good cafe.
Okay, so I think that it's kind of thrown me out, but let's go to we played with my children Dungeons and Dragons Cluedo last night. So I'm going to say in a dungeon style cafe with surrounded by lots of stone but warmed up by tapestries and rugs and a roaring fire. Yeah, lots of chunky
suspects
wood.
all around.
Definitely suspects all around, you know, rogues and bards and wizards and all those terrible people. But yeah, so I think I happen to have a tankard of warm mead to get me going.
Oh, there we are. The unknown or highly debatable ingredients that could be in there. But I think we might be almost enjoying the same coffee then. I did talk about the odd-looking mushroom at the doorstep. So, and who knows what was in the mead back then. But
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah. Who knows?
But I thought I would kick us off, spotlight a couple of awesome books that have been recently listed on the website. And so we're going to go through a couple of contemporary books. So the first one I'd like to start with is called The Crying Room, and it is by author Gretchen Scherm. And once again, this you'll find under our contemporary listings on the website. Now, The Crying Room movingly explores family boundaries and stories, finding original ways to express the contradictory experience of belonging to a family and being an individual at the same time. When Bernie Rogers and her husband move to the coastal town of Ballina, she finds that there is more than a physical distance separating her from her adult daughters. Bernie loves her daughters, but the problem, she realises, is the way she loves them. Bernie's daughter Susie is professionally successful, but her feelings remain distant, even to herself. When she takes on the responsibility for caring for her niece, the pieces of her life finally snap into place. The inexplicable disappearance of an aeroplane note plunges her life into mystery once again. Morally acute and dazzlingly accomplished, this is an affecting novel about loneliness, love, family, and the need to feel. And that is The Crying Room by Gretchen Scherm under our contemporary.
And very happy to say that if you want to win a paperback copy of The Crying Room, make sure that you are on our Book Lovers subscribers list, because I was reading that blurb as you were saying it with the book in my hot little hand here. So thank you very much to the Transit Lounge and Gretchen for giving us a copy for our newsletter subscribers.
And thank you for giving me back some warm and fuzzy memories of being in Ballina and staying there quite often and for stretches at a time. A very cool hippie kind of place, hot hippie town. Well, not a hippie town, but it's a very laid back town. Beautiful spot on the coast. Probably a little bit more laid back than Byron now, but yeah, fond memories. But anyway, that was The Crying Room by Gretchen Sherm. So the next book is also under contemporary, and the book is called The Money Club, and that's by author Fiona Lowe. So a gripping exploration of modern greed as best-selling Australian author Fiona Lowe unpicks the moral quagmire of those who trade on the bonds of their closest friendships and family for money. Izzy Harrington's fiance is a successful entrepreneur and everyone's friend, but today she's waiting for him to get home so she can tell him they're over. Except Brad never arrives. Instead, 3 angry men knock on the door and insist on talking to Brad. When the police arrive asking difficult questions and demanding to see his passport, Izzy's packed suitcases suddenly take on a whole new meaning. Brad's disappearance sends ripples through their small town, and a furious mob camps on Izzy's lawn, desperate to recover their losses. They have Izzy in their crosshairs, determined to make her pay for Brad's audacious con. As the search intensifies, conflicting clues emerge. Clues that suggest no one really knew Brad, least of all, Izzy. And that is The Money Club by Fiona Lowe. And a bit of tension there.
I'll say, yeah, I felt really uncomfortable for her.
Yeah, and then suddenly you feel like you've done the naughty, or more than naughty, possibly. Well, it's a double, triple bluff, isn't it? It could be she's being thought of for murder, or she's playing an accomplice there with the extortion and escape of the money. Oh, so much there. And that is The Money Club. This next one, I love the title, and this one is also contemporary, and it is called Text Messages from the Universe. And this is by author Richard James Allen. So Text Messages from the Universe was inspired by the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or, as is more correctly translated, the natural liberation through understanding in the between. I like that, understanding in the between. So it echoes the form of the original Tibetan Buddhist text, which guides souls on their 49-day transmigration through the bardo, or intermediate state between dying and rebirth. Text Messages from the Universe immerses its readers in subjective states of consciousness they might experience when they quote-unquote die, placing them in a position of going through a journey into their own interior worlds of dreams and projections. It imagines what they might see and think and hear in a seamless but fragmentary flow of poetic images in which time and space and cause and effect logic are turned on their heads. Text Messages from the Universe has a cover painting created especially by Australian artist Michelle Hiscock and is richly illustrated with 4 colour images from author Richard James Allen's film of the same title. Designed by Dylan Jones, each page pulls you deeper into the depths, or is that higher into the heights of its whirling apparitions of after death. So yeah, very quite an interesting title there, Text Messages from the Universe. Richard James Allen under our contemporary. But not to be outdone, we've got 2 more books to spotlight, because after all, this is Book Lovers. This one...
But I also need to say to you that we also have a copy of Text Messages from the Universe from Richard James Allen. And it is just a very small little handful, so it's about half the size of a 9x6, and I very carefully looked in because I don't like to bend the spine, and it looks absolutely fascinating. So newsletter subscribers, another one, keep your eye out for me getting myself into gear and sending out the next newsletter. Go.
Absolutely.
What else you got for us?
It's all about prizes. Yay!
It is all about prizes.
And who doesn't want one that might be all about death and rebirth? That's a good prize. Next one is a mystery and thriller, or crime. This one is called Traced by Catherine Jinks. Again, you'll find that under our mystery and thrillers on the website. And Traced is as follows. Jane is a contact tracer. She has to call a lot of people, and some of them don't want to talk. Various reasons: tax or immigration issues, infidelity, domestic abuse. Jane knows all about that. She and her daughter Tara have spent years in hiding from Tara's manipulative and terrifying ex. Now, as Jane talks to a close contact, she realises the woman on the phone is scared of the same man, and he's close. Too close. Suddenly, the past comes slamming back into the present as Jane realises she and Tara can't keep running forever. One day, they're going to be found. And that is Traced by Catherine Jinks under our mystery and thrillers.
And it is our final of 3 giveaway books. And
Oh, there we go.
when I read the blurb, I thought, oh, that's really scary. And, very much up to the date. So thank you to Catherine who sent that, and that was from Text Publishing. Thanks to them as well for giving us a free copy. Must-read Aussie crime writer. Gee, we have some great talent in this country.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's one, a different kind of title to finish off the little spotlights for episode 89's Little Readers Café, and this is under our historical fiction. And the book is called 1964, and it's by author Michael Buxton. So the year 1964 was one of transition from the certainty of the 1950s to the doubt and disruption of the modern world. A young journalist leaves the security of school and discovers an unfamiliar workplace and an escalating series of confronting experiences. As he begins university, he struggles to relate his studies to the everyday events that he encounters. As he seeks to find a place in this new world, he is torn between reporting local stories or following others who have sought grander achievements. While he seeks knowledge through his reporting and academic studies of philosophy and politics, it's through lived experiences that the young journalist discovers different notions of truth. He learns the way language determines meaning and knowledge by shaping our perceptions, and he is confronted by the meaning of truth. Do we construct our own truth, or does one immutable truth exist? When confronted by these competing realities, along with uncertainty, doubt and incremental failure, he soon faces life-changing decisions that lead to unanticipated and sudden catastrophe. 1964 is a story of our inability to anticipate the future, of how we have arrived at where we are today, and of what we have lost on the way. And that is 1964 by Michael Buxton under our historical fiction. A few little heady themes there, I think, and always love a good philosophical dive and maybe a snapshot back to the 60s, just before the flower power was about to explode.
Indeed. And I think we're chatting to Michael in the near future.
Absolutely,
so,
yes.
He's got his name down to have a chat with us, so that's lovely.
So that
All
is
right.
my book spotlights for episode 89, Readers Cafe. So time for me to sit back and finish my big cup while I rub my socks.
Yes, and you kind of stole my thunder, but that was all right, because The Crying Room by Gretchen Sherm, Text Messages from the Universe by Richard James Allen, and Traced by Catherine Jinks are our giveaways in the next newsletter. And I've already got one for the newsletter after, so I better get busy. Very quickly, it's been not that long since we recorded the previous episode. So, in fact, I've only finished one more book. So, I've read 76 of my 125, and that was a listening. I was listening to the audiobook Alex Hunter, number 5 by Greg Beck, which are the horror/sci-fi thrillers. And this one's called Gorgon. It's classic. It really is classic. So if you like military, sci-fi, lots of action and sort of technical stuff, but also some really interesting science and history behind it. He does go, in the end, when you listen to the audiobook, he does go into where he gets some of his ideas from, which is just amazing how he links things together. But I do have to say that by next episode, I will certainly have read Laurie Bell's Blood Fever, because that has just been released, and Laurie was on our Writers Lounge not that long ago telling us about the book, and I am about 1/3 of the way through. Had to interrupt reading, of course, to get ready and do some research for this episode, but there you go, Laurie Bell's Blood Fever. More next time. So a little bit light on the books for me.
Well, a little bit light on the books maybe, but there's plenty of books to come. But even more important, You've got a really cool interview, so maybe I'll scull up my coffee and oh damn it, let's put my shoes back on. But anyway, and I'll meet you back out there, and maybe we'll get to the good part of the episode, the groovy
Sounds
part,
good.
the super cool
Sounds
part.
good.
All right, boots are back on, bit muddy, but please do, Veronica, tell us all about the amazing guest that we've got coming up right now.
Indeed. So we are speaking with Naomi Shippen. Now, I talk a little bit about Naomi's bio in the interview, so we won't go into that, but she does have her book set in the beautiful high country in Victoria. So I think we should just jump in and hear Naomi talking about her book, Far From Harm. Hello book lovers. So happy today to be able to share with you some of the success of one of our favourite authors and book reviewers. Tonight I'm chatting with Naomi Shippen. Welcome, Naomi.
Thanks, Veronica. Yes, great to be here.
Good to have you on the program as an author.
Yes, I'm usually on the program as a reviewer, so
Indeed.
now the shoe's on the other foot, so that'll be interesting.
And lots of people, you know, having some great reviews for your story. So for anybody that doesn't know Naomi, I'm going to share a little bit about her writing bio. Stories have always been an important part of Naomi's life, but it wasn't until recent years that she began writing her own stories. So Naomi has a special fascination with mystery and suspense and is intrigued with discovering how far ostensibly ordinary people will go when placed in extreme circumstances. Naomi's work has been published in anthologies, local newspapers and online journals. She's a regular book reviewer, as we know here at Australian Book Lovers. She's a blogger and a podcast guest. And here she is again. Naomi's debut novel, Far From Harm, is now available on pre-order, and it actually comes out on the 29th of July. And currently, a little tip here, she's working on a domestic suspense set in contemporary urban Melbourne. That sounds fantastic.
Oh, thanks, Veronica. Yeah, it's I think domestic suspense is what's sort of interesting me most at the moment. This one will be a little different in that it's set in an urban environment, whereas my debut is set in the Victorian high country.
Which is a beautiful place to be.
Oh, yes. No, it's lovely. My family used to have a caravan there a few years ago, so I was sort of familiar with the area. And that's why I chose it for the setting. I wanted a setting where the protagonist could be sort of isolated and cut off from other people.
Yep.
And so when I was thinking about where I could set it, I thought, yeah, my family had a caravan in the high country, and that can be pretty isolated in places. So that's why I chose the setting.
And I really love I'm just going to admit to readers that I have had an advanced reader copy of Far From Harm, and I found it absolutely delightful. So, well, delightful, is that the right word for a suspense thriller? But maybe not. I found it a really good read. Let's just say that. All right. So before we go any further, I'm going to read the blurb for Far From Harm. After receiving a substantial inheritance, 37-year-old aspiring writer Teresa moves to the high country of Victoria, Australia, to finally write the novel she had always planned. Here she meets and marries Rick Goodman, a former TV star and local entrepreneur. More than a decade her senior, Rick is charming and successful and the most lovingly attentive partner Teresa has ever had. He encourages her dreams to write a novel and rekindles her long-forgotten desire to have a child. Life on their idyllic alpine property is bliss until Rick gets a text message from his ex-wife Anita, the glamorous daughter of a wealthy TV producer. Rick tells Teresa that Anita has run off overseas with her new boyfriend and that they must care for his teenage daughter Chloe. While her efforts to bond with her bewildered and resentful stepdaughter fall flat, Teresa is overjoyed when she falls pregnant. But as months go by with no word from Anita, Teresa's search for answers lead her to the women in Rick's past, and she must uncover the truth about their lives in time to save herself and her unborn child. There you go. So, no, not a delightful story, really. You really love the kind of, the domestic noir, the suspense and the thriller. What is it that attracts you to stories that have these kind of psychological challenges?
I think I've drawn a lot from my own experience.
Yeah.
And just so often in the news you hear about, people who seem normal and even nice, and then it turns out they've got a whole other life going on that not many people know about.
Yes, yeah.
So that always fascinates me. So often you hear in the news if someone's committed some horrible crime and they'll say, oh, but he was such a good bloke or she was such a nice lady. And just, I suppose, sometimes people are so too close to us that we don't have enough perspective and we can't see things other people can see. So I suppose I'm sort of fascinated by something that's kind of lurking in plain sight. You know,
I like that, lurking in plain sight.
yeah. And often people who are a step removed can see that something's a bit NQR, but the person who's closest can't or won't see it or won't admit to anyone else that they see it. So
Yes.
I suppose I find that quite fascinating.
Yeah, look, I absolutely agree. And I think that one of the things I really loved about Far From Harm is you could see all these kind of red flags that Teresa couldn't pick up. And I just feel like, just can't you see what he's doing or she's doing or what? Anyway, and of course that makes you turn the page and go, surely she'll find out in this chapter. But no, then there would be twists and turns and red herrings and all sorts of things. So with all of your reading of those things, you have managed to put together a really good story that I am sure will keep readers glued to the page. We usually ask authors, is there anything specifically Australian about your book? And you've said that, of course, it's set in the Victorian High Country. And what do you think your story sort of brings to the Australian literary scene, I guess? I mean, what is it that you love about writing about Australia?
I think because I've brought the urban and the natural world together, I think we sort of fancy ourselves as being sort of rural people and, people of the land and that sort of thing. Whereas in reality, I think nowadays most of us wouldn't have a clue and we're really quite urban. So the people in the story, they're actually newcomers to the high country. Like they've come from the city to the high country and they're a little bit out of step and don't really know what they're doing, don't really fit in. They've got a large property, but they don't manage it well because they don't know how.
Yeah, we call them tree changers up in our neck of the woods.
Yes, that's exactly. And I've called Teresa a tree changer. So they're tree changers. They're a little bit, and that's another reason why Teresa's sort of isolated is because she's just doesn't kind of fit in. She's a little out of step. She doesn't really belong there. So I suppose that's something that I feel like I'm contributing to Australian literature in that. I'm showing the reality that we are really an urban people now, mostly. But we've still got, a lot of natural beauty and nature to go back to. If we make the effort, if we want to, we can go back to it. But
yeah, absolutely. And I think we both live and work on Wurundjeri country, and it is incredibly different. So down in the city, down in Naarm, or up here in the Macedon Ranges, where there is still some pristine bush left up here. That we often used to think in the Christmas holidays in particular that so many along the east coast people would go to the beach, to the coast. I always felt like that we'd almost tip the country over a little bit with this sort of exodus that we have to the coast. But, I know that that's not going to happen. We're, well and truly here for a while. Okay, so that is the specifically Australian part. And I love that Teresa was planning to write a novel and had always planned this. So how reflective is that of your writing journey?
Oh, very reflective. That's me all over. I've always wanted to do it, but never got around to it, as they say. And I kept waiting for the right time when I'd have, long stretches of time and nothing else to do. And of course, that never comes. And then I suppose when my children grew up, when they became adults, they didn't really need me to do anything for them anymore. And I just found out I had a little more time than I was used to. So I thought, well, time for me to do some writing. So I started writing another novel, not this one. So I did that. That was in 2018. And I think what sparked that off was we went for a trip to Japan. And I think just, I don't know, being in a different environment and having, time away from my usual life, I don't know, I just had time to think and just get ideas working. So that's when I started writing. That was like 2018. So ever since then I've just haven't stopped really.
It's fantastic. Tell me the genesis then of Far From Harm. When did the idea for that come to you? The inspiration even?
Would have been while I was completing my first novel, I sort of had an idea for this, and there's a few. It's really a composite of a lot of different things, and I don't want to give specifics because I want people to have their own ideas of the characters and the situation in that novel.
Yep.
So it's a lot of it's based on actual. Well, parts of it are based on actual people, like certain aspects of people I've actually met in real life. And then parts of it are of real people who I don't know but I've heard about on the news.
Right,
One in particular, I don't want to say his name because, I want people to have their own idea. There's a certain person who was in the news for doing really awful crimes and getting away with it for many decades because he was quite a powerful person. And I was fascinated by the idea that, like, everybody knew no one could do anything about it, and they had their own strategies for circumventing what he was doing, but they couldn't do anything legally because he was too powerful. So I was sort of fascinated by that. And characters on TV that have captured my imagination, like, I think I'm fascinated by the idea of, like, the bad person who's got that little bit of good in them. And there was a certain character on TV who was, you know, a bit of a grifter and, you know, not a really bad guy, but, you know, just not a good guy. And it turned out that he was quite good at heart. There was something that happened. There was someone who was supposed to be conning, and he actually, you know, had a bit of a soft spot for them and ended up, you know, being quite protective of them. I thought that was quite fascinating. And then just people I've met along the way. There's little bits and pieces of a few different people in the story as well. So it's really been a composite.
There are, bits and pieces you think, oh, that sounds really, oh, I could see that happening. Oh, that sounds like something I know. Very relatable. How long did it take you to put together the first draft?
The first draft, because I was doing it in between. Finishing my first novel, because I wrote a first novel and I thought I was finished with the first novel, and then I found I wasn't. So I thought I was finished, so I started the second one, and then, you know, I realised I had more work to do. So I started writing Far From Harm in 2019, and a bit naughty, I remembered jotting down things at work on work stationery, which I shouldn't have been doing. So
if an idea comes, you know,
yeah. I don't do it anymore. I'm way too busy in my current role.
Yeah.
But I just jot down little, you know, snippets and ideas and things like that. So that started in 2018. And I really take my time with this one because I was still working on the first one, and I was doing, you know, what they call all the other things, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, nowadays, if you want to be traditionally published, you've got to have the, you know, the website. And I suppose the first draft took a good year, I think, to do. And then after I finished the first draft, I work with critique partners. I've got a really good group overseas, and we swap manuscripts. So, yeah, we kept working on that. And then various beta readers. I've got some wonderful people in the Australian writing community as well, and we swapped manuscripts. So did the rounds of the beta readers and had a couple of professional assessments as well, and then a professional editor. So, yeah, I suppose it must have taken me a good year or so.
Yep. Sounds like it takes a village to write a story. Well, to publish a book, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's really a team effort. And in my acknowledgements, I sort of acknowledge everyone who's helped me, because you really can't do it alone.
Yeah, regardless of whether you're indie publishing or traditional, there are a lot of people involved. Tell us how you acquired your publisher.
Well, it was really from being involved in the writing community, and I was kind of thinking about self-publishing at one stage, but that I just always thought that that's a whole other, you know, big task in itself.
Yes, indeed,
so much work and so much to create a physical book and, you know, do all your own publicity and everything, and so I had sort of half an eye on that, but meanwhile I was querying. And just through social media contacts, I heard of Kingsley Publishers. So that was through one of my critique partners. Her name's Kelly Scroy, and she had a writer called Jess Kitching on her blog, and I read Jess's book, and her book was domestic suspense as well. Her books were thriller books. And so when I finished reading, I loved her books. I looked up who her publisher was and saw it was Kingsley Publishers. So then I looked up their website and saw that they took submissions directly and didn't need to go through an agent. So I submitted to them, and I was lucky enough to be offered a contract.
Fantastic. We have actually, got Jess's books on our website, and, we've been chatting to her as well. And Kelly, I also know from social media, and also, I have met Kelly, which is fantastic because I know she's working hard on her stories as well.
Yes.
Is the experience of working with a traditional publisher, has it been as enjoyable as you imagine, or has it been hard work, or somewhere in between?
Somewhere in between. It's been good having that support, but there's still a lot of work. When you submit your manuscript, it's just a manuscript. It's not a finished product, so there's still a lot of work to do. But it's been really fun as far as designing the cover. That's a lot of fun. I was allowed to, have quite a bit of say in the kind of typeface I want and the picture I wanted, and seeing the book produced as, like, they send you the electronic copy of the typeset book, and that's really fun as well.
Yeah.
And then all the social media things, they support me in that. They've produced some beautiful artworks that I can then use in social media posts. So that's been a lot of fun, but it is work as well. But I'm just lucky that I found a lot of it, quite fun as well. Doing working with all the image.
There have been some great reviews coming through, and if you are interested in Naomi's book, you need to jump on our website and get yourself in a pre-order, or if the episode's out and Naomi's book has just been published, then jump on and buy yourself a copy. And if you're not, if your finances don't quite do it yet, go onto Goodreads and click into Want to Read, and then that's going to help bring it up to the top of the algorithm as well. Everything we can do to help our Australian authors is very important. All right, Naomi, I want you to tell me, given all of the people that are involved in your story, were you a plotter or are you a pantser or somewhere in between? Do you do that kind of discovery stuff where it all pours out? Or because I find some of the mystery writers are a bit more into the plotting.
Yeah, with this one, I was definitely a plotter. I think, as you say, with mystery and suspense, the plot is so important. With my first novel, I really just made it up as I went along, and it showed. It wasn't much fun. But this one being suspense, I do a little grid, not even on Excel. I just use a word grid.
Yeah.
And just have the 3-act structure and the 5, plot points, and just fill in the gap. Yeah, so and I was surprised when I went back to the original sort of grid that I did before I started writing, how much I really stuck to that. There were some changes, of course, but I pretty much stuck to it.
This is good. It's nice to know that I'm doing a course with the Australian Writers Centre at the moment, and been doing a lot of chatting about that 3-act structure. So if anybody's interested, go and have a look. Go and Google 3-act structure and see, and then put that kind of framework over the books that you're reading and see if you can pick where those things happen. What are you reading at the moment?
Oh, so much. I can hardly keep up with. There's so many great books coming out. I've just finished reading The Heart is a Star by Megan Rogers. That's a beautiful book. It's I say it's a beautiful book. It's also it's got a mystery. It is a beautiful book, beautifully written, but it's got a very big mystery at its heart. Just absolutely fascinating. So I've started a thriller by Mercedes Mercer.
Right.
Black Lies, and it's set in a prison, which I find absolutely fascinating.
I will admit that I've just been listening to Candace Fox on audio books and her Crimson Lake series, and just amazing some of the stuff about prison that was at Ted. I can't remember what his last name is, but anyway, one of the main characters, and actually two of the main characters have been in prison. So yeah, interesting that we like that kind of voyeuristic information, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you obviously have a writing goal for the next 12 months because you're working on this new contemporary Melbourne suspense. So what's your goal for the next 12 months?
Well, my first goal is to launch the debut novel.
Yes.
So at the moment, I've put the new novel aside so I can just fully concentrate on this. So once that's out in the world, I'll be going back to my second or third novel. So I'll be working on the next project. So I want to finish the first draft. I'm being very generous and say I want to finish the first draft by the end of the year, but I've only got another 30,000 words to go. So I'm nearly there, but I sort of almost got to the working on the third act, and then the book launch sort of came up to work on. So that had to, just be put aside. But I want to get back into that,
Because, certainly the book launch takes precedence. So tell me some of the things that you're doing to share the work. We talked a little bit about a couple before we started recording. So, where can people kind of see you or read about stuff and what's happening?
Oh, all over the place, really. I'm on all the social media sites. I'm on BookBump, I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I am on Twitter, although I've sort of, after the big kerfuffle a couple of months ago where they thought it was all going to finish up, I sort of, Facebook, Instagram or TikTok, and I've also got a website as well.
So your website, in fact, is naomishippen.com. So NaomiShippen.com. Just in case we want to dash there or quickly do that while we're having a chat. I want to hear a little bit about your writing routine. So when you're drafting or editing, when you're actually working on your book, because I know like many Australian authors, you also have another job which you go to, which pays the bill. So tell me about your writing routine. When's your favourite time to write?
Definitely in the morning. I'm an early riser, and I'm still part of the 6 a.m. Hashtag 6 a.m. Oz writers. I haven't checked in with them for a little while because I thought Twitter was ending. But that was good. It's a good check in to start the day. So even as early as 5, sometimes 4 if I'm not sleeping. But definitely early mornings are time I love to write, and also on weekends, when I can. So it's basically mornings and weekends. Evenings, I've tried, it doesn't work.
Yep, got no brain power. I'm with you there. Sometimes I think, if I could just do another half hour after dinner, but it's like, just can't.
No.
Can't. I do a fair bit of computer work during the day as well. So by the end of it, it's like, my eyes just will not look at another screen. No. Now, tell me what you think the value is of critique partners, because writing is such a solitary occupation generally when you are putting the words on paper, when you're editing. How did you get involved with your critique partners? You've mentioned you've got some overseas.
I've just by being around on social media and following all the sort of the hashtag writing sites. So I've met Kelly Scoy on Twitter. I put up a tweet pretty early in the piece with my first novel saying, I'd like a critique partner. I'd like to do a swap. And Kelly finally put up her hand, and we swapped manuscripts, and she's been fantastic. That's how I met her. And then I'm in an organisation called Women Fiction Writers Association, WFWA. They're based in America, and they sort of match you up with people of similar interests. They've set me up with a group that we all had finished manuscripts, and so we all, got together as a group through Zoom once a week. Fantastic group there. I'll just quickly say their names if I can. Kerry Chaput, she's an historical fiction author. She's got a book out at the moment. Lisa Carnachan and Bridget Russell. So they're all in America, and we all get together via Zoom, which is fantastic. And then with the 6 a.m. writers, K.D. Cowles, I've swapped manuscripts with her, also K.M. Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, another writer I met through a Facebook group, Caitlin Farnsworth, who's been published in many literary journals, and we've swapped manuscripts as well. And I think that, and just some other people who I've met online, and it's not necessarily a swap. Sometimes it's Michelle Tom from another group that I'm in. She's been a fantastic help. Yeah, just even chatting with people about, sometimes you don't even swap the whole manuscript, you just chat about aspects of it with different writer friends. And I think the best thing that they give some perspective on your work, and they often see things that you can't see. Yeah, I think that the best thing is that your partners and the beta readers give you some perspective.
Yes.
Because you get too close, and there's often things that you miss, and by the same, there's often things that you don't appreciate about your own work, but that they can see.
Things that you think, I'll just do that, but it is, in fact, very good. And Naomi, tell me, has publishing a book, or, just about, has the publication of your book kind of hit home yet? Do you feel like you have achieved that dream of being a writer?
I think so, because now I've had to tell everybody. Like I tried to do it on the quiet for a very long time.
Yes, yeah.
But now I've had to, pretty much tell everyone. And I've had a great reaction. And the first thing people say, if they're sort of not really involved in the reading or writing community, is, when's the book? They're looking forward to a big party. So I thought, I better have one. So hence my book launches at a pub.
There you go. Very good. And if people are looking for the launch, you can jump onto Naomi's website and have a look and get all the details there, because then you can book in and be properly counted and all those kind of things. So don't forget, Naomi Shippen, SHIPPEN.com. What's your advice for writers that are looking to copy your success?
I would say slow down because it's a really long game.
Yeah.
And I was in a real hurry to finish my first novel, so I could make $1 million and live on an island.
Wouldn't that be good?
That would be nice, but it doesn't really work that way. So just take your time, just enjoy it, and always have another project on the go. So, if you're sending something out to if you're querying it or just sending it out to another writer for feedback or waiting, there's lots of times where you have to wait, have something else to do to distract you. So you're not just sitting there waiting for the email to come in or the phone call or anything like that. And also, on the off chance that it doesn't work out, well, you've got something else to focus on. So don't put all your eggs in one basket either.
Too true. Very sound advice. For people who are wondering whether they should pick up your book or not, what sort of what advice would you give to them?
I'd say pick it up and buy a copy for your friends and family.
Too true.
Yeah.
All right. What can they expect, perhaps, if they do buy Far From Harm?
Well, a lot of people have said that the characters are very, very relatable and very true to life. They're all contemporary characters. There's a range of different ages. Like I've got a teenager, and I was very pleased to hear that a lot of people said, "Oh, this teenager is just like my teenager."
Yeah, a little bit obnoxious.
A little bit, but she's had,
understandably,
understandably, she's got her reasons. So I was very pleased to hear that. Also, Teresa's like a modern woman who's got balancing family and career aspirations and everything else. And also, I think everybody knows someone who's a little bit like Rick. Maybe someone you might see a little bit of a red flag, and then you might sort of dismiss it and think, oh, that's just his way. It's not that bad. But I think we all know. I think we all know a Rick.
Yeah. Very good. All right. And I can recommend it, readers, if you are looking for a really good thriller, if you're looking for something set in a rural Australian town up in the high country of Victoria, this is the one for you. So, Far From Harm by Naomi Shippen. Now, I've said Naomi's website a couple of times. You can find her on Instagram. She's naomi.shippen.writes. On Facebook, she's at @nshippen. And I have to say, you're pretty good on the old TikTok, Naomi.
Oh, thank you. It's actually quite fun when you get into it. They've got these really helpful templates. So it's a matter of just choosing the template you like, putting the photos on, finding some music, and just hoping, it's not as bad as people say it is, and no one's going to steal your identity.
Yes, it is a bit of a worry, isn't it? But it's important to get your stories out there, and this is what we do in this day and age, is to share on social media and recommend to each other the books that we like and put reviews and those kind of things. So thank you so much for being on the podcast as, your author rather than just your book review and blogger, which we hope to get you back on doing some of those one day when you've got a little bit more time. So Naomi Shippen, author of Far From Harm, which is coming out on the 29th of July. Thank you very much for having a chat with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Veronica. It's been really, really great to be on your show. Thank you.
Very good. Take care. Bye for now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Naomi Shippen, thank you so much for having such a lovely chat, and it was delightful to have you on as our author interview because we really appreciate your book reviews. Of course, now she's a little bit too busy at the moment to do any of those, but that's okay because we've got somebody else doing a book review of Naomi's book, and it's not me, even though I have read her book and I think it's fabulous. So many things to consider. How far will people go when they're placed in extraordinary circumstances? The sort of the rise of the domestic suspense, and I really like, and this is the link to Sonder, which I said earlier in the episode, that people seem nice, but there's this whole other life. In fact, there's kind of evil lurking in plain sight, which I suspect you quite associate with that, Darren, with your horror writing?
Do you know what? Well, before I even go any further, I just want to say a huge thank you so much, Naomi. Congratulations on the new book. Thanks so much for being finally on the podcast, because we've always had the honour of your book reviews, and that's been fantastic. But it was well overdue to come on and have a chat. But yeah, absolutely. Well, when you talk about that sort of the hidden or a whole alternate sort of lifestyle behind the facade, I guess you could say, it reminds me of like when I used to get up at like 3:34 in the morning to go to work, and I'd be standing out the front just getting ready to jump in the car or whatever, and the street would be super quiet, and then for a moment there I'd sort of stand there and it was a really surreal moment because you'd be realising, okay, there's all these houses and you get the brick walls, but beyond the brick walls are all these like human beings that are currently inanimate. Yeah. Just like lying flat as though they're, hit the pause. So it's like a really strange alien sort of feeling. And the same sort of thing we have, and I think David Lynch as a director tried to sort of peel away at it as well. And that is, we have those facades. We walk past houses and the beautiful gardens and the smiling neighbours and the waves and but behind these doors, there can be some horrible evils going on, and we just don't know. And that's the evil can have the most innocent smile, can't it? Because I mean, we're always one of the most common, almost a cliche is. If somebody turns out to be a mass murderer or does some sort of horrific crime, it's like, I can't believe it. He was the nice guy. She was the nicest lady.
Which is exactly what Naomi was saying. Yeah, and you say, but they're just an ordinary family like us, and then you think, oh no, they weren't.
And no, and they define what's normal family. But yeah, it's but even worse, I guess, is it's one thing to be in that position where you smile, you wave, and you think everything's all right with the world, and then sometimes it comes as a shock to find out it's not. But the road becomes a little bit slipperier and a bit more difficult to navigate what happens if you've got suspicions? That's where it gets really tricky, because then, you don't know. Are you interfering? Are you projecting some sort of your own fears or suspicions onto a situation that doesn't warrant it? Are you perceiving true trigger signs or warning signs? Or, it's such a tricky one, because sometimes you get to that point where you think, why wasn't that stopped at an earlier point? Or how did some people let that go on? But, that facade of, that everything's all right on the front, we might have suspicions, but who can really act on suspicions? It's such a tricky thing.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So lots to think about in terms of what Naomi was sharing with us about, people looking in plain sight, and that bad person has a little bit of good in them. I also liked the fact that she had so many people to acknowledge in the eventual publication of her book. We talked about it takes a village to publish a book. She has critique partners and beta readers and professional editors, and certainly a publishing company, and her friends and family and all of that kind of thing. Although sometimes, your family doesn't quite get why you're doing it, and so they perhaps try and give you support, but not necessarily the writerly kind of support that you need. And, even sites like ours and podcasts where, we give writers of all persuasions the opportunity to have a chat or to list their book so that people can see it. And every time you see a book, you think, oh, okay, maybe that one. And when you see it 3 or 4 times, you go, yep, right, I'm ready to buy that book or whatever. So, it takes a village. Critique partners, beta readers, alpha readers, editors, copy setters, cover design artists, all those kind of things to publish a story.
It just goes to show that final piece of art that you hold in your hand is, it's such a it's a family of people who are coming together, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah, it's not just, we always talk about how easily it can get lonely writing, because it's such a, you do it alone. You can't really do it with many other people. So you're usually sitting there by yourself writing, usually sitting yourself reading, editing. It's all done by yourself, with occasional breaks to do whatever. But like you just said, it takes a village to get it from the words on the paper or on the screen through to the product in the beautiful reader's hands. So
yeah, absolutely.
And that's why a book's such a treasure to hold, because there's so much involved in it. And yet the final product really is a simple product, isn't it? It's a few words on paper. You open it up and you get transported to a whole other world, or sometimes a whole other universe. But by its nature, it's a simple product, and yet it has the power to change your life. And it's just got so many hands that have put together that beautiful artwork. So, hopefully that inspires you to run down to your second-hand bookshop or your new bookshop and grab a book. Grab Naomi's book.
Indeed, grab Naomi's book. Or kind of talking about family, because Naomi really is part of the ABL family. And one of our first family members is our guest in the Writers' Lounge today.
Absolutely, yes.
So just introduce before we jump into the Writers' Lounge. So Gary Lonesborough is a Yuin writer who grew up on the far south coast of New South Wales as part of a large and proud Aboriginal family. Now, he admits to growing up as a massive Kylie Minogue and North Queensland Cowboys fan. He was always writing as a child, and he continued his creative journey when he moved to Sydney to study at film school. And as he will talk to us later, he's got experience working in Aboriginal health, the disability sector and the film industry, including working on the feature film adaptation of Jasper Jones. So there you go. So we spoke with Gary. He was our very first author interview in episode 1 with his debut YA novel, The Boy from the Mish. So I think time for the Writers' Lounge.
How cool does the universe move in circles sometimes and loop back on itself in beautiful and profound ways? But otherwise, I will meet you in the bar.
Okay. So book lovers, we are absolutely delighted to have our very first guest, who was on episode 1, but is now with us here many, many decades of episodes later. Welcome, Gary Lonesborough.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
You are most welcome, and I'm glad that we could, you could fit us in as opposed to the other way, because since the publication of The Boy from the Mish, things have gone on and gone really well with you in terms of writing. So fantastic.
Yeah, well, yeah, the book did really well. When we first spoke, I think it was very early days, just after the release. So, many festivals, many school visits later, and yeah, the second book's out now. So, yeah, it's been a lot's happened since.
There's been a lot happened.
But yeah, it has been a bit of a roller coaster, but yeah, a good one.
Yeah. So, Gary, we're imagining that we are in the Writers' Lounge today, and given that we're recording on a Friday afternoon, normally I'm just about ready to chuck it in by this stage, and so I'm heading out to have dinner with the kids, and we're going Mexican. So I'm going to imagine in the Writers' Lounge that perhaps I'm having, a nice little tequila slammer or something very exotic. So I'm here on Wurundjeri land down in southeast Victoria. Where are you coming from? And what kind of drink would you like in the Writers' Lounge?
I'm on Darug land here in Western Sydney at the moment, and I've recently rediscovered my love for hot Milo. So I'm actually drinking a hot Milo right now. Went away for it for years, but I was just in the shop probably a few months ago now. But I was just happened to be walking past the Milos and thought, you know what, I haven't had Milo in a while. Gonna get that, and nearly every day since.
Very good. Now, do you do it with the Tim Tam Slam? Because that's what I did last night. Hot Milo and a Tim Tam Slam.
I'm trying to limit my sugar intake for the day.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right.
No Tim Tams at the moment.
No Tim Tams. All right. Now, we do have another guest in the Writers' Lounge, and I haven't forgotten him, of course, our co-founder, Darren Kazenko.
Hello, and Gary, thank you so much for, as Veronica mentioned, our very first ever guest, and now here you are in our lounge. Thank you so much for coming back and taking the time to have a quick chat with us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's great to meet you as well. I don't think you were. I don't think I saw you last time.
No, I missed out on that one. But as far as bars go, I think you've both inspired me. So, Veronica, you inspired me with the Mexican theme. Mm-hmm. Gary, the concept of your new book also inspired me a little bit. So, and because it's so freezing cold at the moment, I am picturing myself in a cantina-style outdoor illegal bar in Mexico in the heat of summer. I've got a warm, sweaty glass of tequila with a half-eaten chewed worm at the bottom, and to the left is corrupt police, and to the right is naughty criminals. So, cheers, everybody. But I've got one quick question before we dive in the book. You said you've rediscovered your love of hot Milo. Now, it has been years since I've had a Milo, but I remember that if you had warm Milo, it wouldn't stay crunchy like if you put it in cold milk. Is that right?
Yeah, no, it dissolves and becomes part of the liquid. So definitely not crunchy. I do enjoy the cold. Well, like you said, it's so cold right now, so I'm just opting for the hot Milo at the moment. And also, cold Milo takes a little bit more milk, so attacking the cost of living for us.
Too true. But if you don't stir the hot Milo too much, there's a little bit of a nice chocolatey last mouthful.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, all of that aside, Gary, we're hopefully Milo sales will go up like a rocket. But we're really here to talk to you about your new book, which is We Didn't Think It Through. Now, just for listeners, I'm going to give you the little blurb from the author of the award-winning The Boy from the Mish. We know, yes, comes a compelling coming-of-age YA novel about 16-year-old Jamie Langton finding his future and navigating the challenges of racism, family and friendship in a small Australian town. The thought comes to me, this is how I die. Delhi is going to lose control and crash us into a pole or a house, and we will be killed on impact. The justice system characterises Jamie Langton as a danger to society, but he's just an Aboriginal kid trying to find his way through adolescence. Jamie lives in Dalton's Bay with Auntie Dawn and Uncle Bobby. He spends his downtime hanging out with his mates, Dally and Lenny. Mark Cassidy and his white mates, the footy heads, take every opportunity they can to bully Jamie and his friends. On Lenny's last night in town before moving to Sydney, after another episode of racist harassment, Jamie, Dally and Lenny decide to retaliate by vandalising Mark Cassidy's car. And when they discover the keys are in the ignition, Dally changes the plan. Soon they're all in Mark Cassidy's stolen car, cruising through town, aiming to take it for a quick spin, then dump it, but it's a bad plan. And as a consequence, Jamie ends up in the youth justice system, where he must find a way to mend his relationships with himself, his friends, his family, and his future. There you go. We didn't think it through. Gary, tell us about the idea, I guess, the genesis for the book.
Yeah, I wish I could just read that blurb out every time someone asks me to explain what the book is about.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. I guess the genesis of the idea. At the time, I was working for an Aboriginal organisation in Western Sydney. Part of that job was to run an Aboriginal program at one of the juvies here in Western Sydney. So I was in the juvie once a week, spending time with the boys that were locked up there. I'd worked with a few of the boys one-on-one in a more individual capacity outside the program as well. And I guess I was just becoming really frustrated with the amount of Aboriginal boys that were being locked up, with the limits of the support I could provide, the lack of other support that they could have access to. I guess I was also very, once I'd started noticing some recurring themes with the boys, I also became very frustrated with, the way the systems that were put in place to protect them have failed them. As an example, a lot of the boys I'd worked with, came from broken homes or had been removed from their parents at a young age and placed with foster families or with kinship carers. A lot of them had disengaged from education or had learning difficulties or delays. A lot of them had a lot of mental health issues that weren't being addressed. And I was just very passionate. I was becoming very passionate and angry at how hard their lives were. And at the same time, I was being really inspired by the resilience and the strength that they had. And through working with them, I just kind of, this character just started growing in my head. And I just kind of sat there for a while as I got to know the character, got to think about the story that was forming inside my brain. And then I got the contract for The Boy from the Mish, and I had all this creative momentum, and just started writing. And it's been a long road to get to where the book is now, but that's how it started, was from that work experience, and knowing what these boys had been through, what led them to juvie, what kind of past they'd had, but also the resilience and the strength that they were showing, and their desire to connect with culture even though they were very disconnected.
Incredibly difficult. But with yourself being so immersed in the situation, I guess, almost easy to draw together, a character and share that experience.
Yeah, exactly. I think at one point I was pretty much drawing directly from one of those boys' lives, and then I needed to throw that out and really focus on the fictional Jamie. Seeing where he was taking me. But it is very hard as well, like working in that environment, feeling the passion and the desire to do more, but also having to protect yourself and your own self-care, and knowing when to take a break and when to step back, and knowing, I guess it probably sounds a bit strange, but I've been working with youth for over 6 years now, and I've kind of learnt that sometimes you have to tone down your empathy levels after work to help switch off. I was really bad at switching off for a long time, but it's something that you learn with experience. But it is very frustrating to want to do so much, want to help so much, and not be able to. And sometimes just have to step back and allow things to unfold without being able to change or help. But I hope through writing this book that I'm able to maybe shine a light on those boys, or give a little bit of volume to their voices, because their stories are never really heard. That's kind of the hope I had through writing this book.
Well, Gary, with your first book particularly, I remember you saying to us that you wanted gay Aboriginal kids to have an opportunity to see somebody that was like them and could be a part of their story, or they could see part of their story in that book. So, yeah, what you've written now is surely going to do the same kind of, be there as a hook for people to go, somebody sees me.
Yeah, I hope so. I know personally a lot of boys like Jamie who have been in and out of juvie or gone down the wrong path. And I myself, I did a lot of that kind of underage drinking, partying, sneaking out, roaming the streets of Bega late at night. I definitely feel like, one or two decisions that I made, if I made the wrong decisions, I could have easily been in this situation that Jamie's in. I think it's very easy to look at a black kid doing something wrong and label him as, a criminal or a bad kid. But it's not so easy to actually try and understand someone and understand the traumas that they've been through and to figure out how to actually make positive difference. So yeah, I definitely, I was very much like Jamie in this book when I was a teenager. Yeah, there was a lot of myself in the character as well. But yeah, I definitely hope, an Aboriginal kid can pick up this book and see a part of themselves in it, see a part of what they know in the character, or a part of who they are in the character. But also to be able to go on that journey with Jamie, where he's trying to figure out how to understand and express his own emotions and how he feels, and also reconnect with himself and his own identity and his family. So yeah, that's definitely a hope for me that young Aboriginal readers will be able to pick up this book and see a part of themselves in it.
Yeah,
it's such a tricky thing, isn't it, Gary, that in the sense of for so many of us growing up, it is a case that on more than one occasion there were moments in time where I definitely didn't think it through. And it's from those scenarios where you didn't really put much thought to it and you just sort of do crazy stuff or stupid stuff. It's kind of how a lot of us in life learn our lessons, through making mistakes, through doing things that might, cause pain or whatever it might be, have ramifications. But it is tricky when you have people that grow up with different opportunities or different environments, and for some people that are in those more challenging environments, not thinking it through, the repercussions of doing something is that there's that razor-edged line between learning from your mistake and being able to move forward, or making a mistake that might impact the rest of your life. And I think that's bringing a title like this, we didn't think it through. Hopefully it means it gives the opportunity for people to sort of realise that it's not an even playing field, and by not thinking it through, there's a fine line between learning a lesson or, being sort of burdened by unwanted repercussions for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like myself, a lot of those moments as a teenager were very spontaneous, and no one really, we never really thought anything through. We just wanted to have fun, and we were bored, which I know a lot of kids are, in small country towns where there's not a lot to do. So, from boredom becomes action, and sometimes the action is not positive. But like you said, we all we have to make mistakes to learn from them. And as a teenager, I loved spontaneity. I loved, starting a night, not knowing where it was going to end up, making decisions on the fly. Should we go visit this friend? All right, let's do it. Those kinds of things. But these days, I opt more for the predictability. So it's interesting.
And a hot Milo.
Yeah.
And a hot Milo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting how my own kind of connection to fun has changed. I need to know how I'm getting home, or how long I'm going to be out if I'm going out somewhere. And I didn't need to know any of that when I was a teenager. I just wanted to be out of the house doing something, which I know a lot of kids want to when they're at that age.
Curious, Gary, was the Boy from the Mish and We Didn't Think It Through, the concepts of both, were they sort of, did you have them in your head at the same time and it came down to a choice of which one you want to start first, or you got motivated to put this one down with the, thanks to the success of the Boy from the Mish? How did it all work out that way?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll have a number of ideas at any given time, and one of them will just start kind of growing a bit stronger in my mind or stand out a little bit to me. What I think will be funner to write. I guess, and one thing I found that's interesting is like each book for me is kind of leading into the next one. So when I had The Boy from the Mish, that was the only story that I had in my head at the time. So I wrote that. If you haven't read the book, there's a character in The Boy from the Mish called Thomas, who is this kid who's growing up in out-of-home care and is currently being cared for by Jackson's auntie, and he's also fresh out of juvie. So I kind of started exploring that stuff while I was working in it through that character. But I guess after finishing that book, there was still a lot more I wanted to explore and a lot more I wanted to say about those kids, that have been through that. So that kind of, exploring Thomas's character kind of informed Jamie's story. Obviously, the character's a completely different character, but the themes and the curiosity I had was the same, and likewise, there's a lot of things I wanted to explore in this book We Didn't Think It Through, that I didn't really get to, and it's kind of bled into my next project, which I'm working on at the moment. So yeah, it's interesting. I feel like for me anyway at the moment, it feels like each project is kind of informing the next one or inspiring the next one.
Just evolving sounds good.
Yeah, that's a really good word.
Yeah.
You've been gifted with that magical pen that never runs out of ink, you see.
So Gary, in the 2 years since a bit over 2 years since we've chatted to you, you've done a lot of writing associated work. So, we see you at festivals, and I know you're doing school visits and lots of other things. What have you most enjoyed about being a writer?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I do really love doing like festival appearances. I have to say my favorite part of it is being able to go and visit all these different places and speak at festivals and meet people. I went to the Byron Writers Festival last year, and I got to stay in this little kind of like a resort, and it was amazing. To be able to have that experience, because I wrote this book. It was amazing. I've definitely enjoyed being able to go and visit places and stay at hotels and meet other writers and talk about books and. That's probably the part of it I loved the most. But I was very scared of school visits and writing workshops with young people. But I've also really found that how much I love it after doing it a few times and really getting into a rhythm with it. Being able to run writing exercises with kids and get them to read their stories at the end and to see what they've created. It's really fulfilling and kind of feels like I'm serving my purpose that I was put here for. Not to sound religious or anything, but I love it all really. It's all been a bit of a roller coaster, but really fun and a lot of good things I wouldn't have experienced otherwise. So been loving it.
Excellent. It's good to hear. Now, when is We Didn't Think It Through coming out? Because I think we're sometime in August, so is that right?
It actually came out on the 4th of July.
4th of July. Oh my gosh. Sorry. I'm getting mixed up with somebody else. Beg your pardon. Congratulations on the publication on 4th of July. That's a kind of an interesting day. Yeah. So I hope
it was actually one of my best friend's birthdays as well.
There you go.
Now her birthday is forever going to be marred by me celebrating the anniversary of We Didn't Think It Through.
There you go. Are they going to forever hold you to that, or will you be poking them back?
Yeah, I made a joke that I was stealing her thunder this year, and she was like, "Oh, that's fine. Take it. Take all the thunder." So I think I'll just keep doing that. But yeah, no, so it's been out for a couple of weeks now, and it's been really exciting to actually, hear from people who've read it. I guess I was very nervous to hear what people thought, because the first book did pretty well. Like, it really exceeded my expectations, and very, very nervous about how the second book would be received. But so far, so good. So
excellent.
Fingers crossed that will continue.
Yeah, for sure. So, Gary, thanks for dropping into the Writers' Lounge. I mean, we could chat for much longer, but I know you've got lots on your plate, so I really appreciate you coming and sharing your hot Milo with us. And my tequila is done. How about you, Darren?
Just finished the last of the worm off, and after that chat, everyone seems to be a little bit calmer. The police are not bothering anyone, and the banditos are just sitting there laughing. So I might just quietly leave before anything erupts. But no, Gary, thank you so much for being part of the Writers' Lounge, and huge congratulations on the book. And by the sounds of it, you did say you're already working on the next one, so it's just going to go up and up and up from here, isn't it? And hopefully you find a little bit of time for some relaxation between all the frenetic energy that's going to be sweeping you forward from here.
Yeah, hopefully. I actually realised, I was talking with my partner, that I haven't really had a holiday in a while. Like, anytime I've had time off from work, it's been to go somewhere for a writing thing, or do book stuff. So I think I'm due for an actual holiday. Yeah,
maybe go back to Byron and just quietly don't do anything.
Yeah, maybe when it's a bit warmer.
All right, thanks again, Gary, for having a chat with us in the Writers' Lounge, and good luck with We Didn't Think It Through.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Gary, for a great chat, and really lovely to catch up with you. And hot Milos all around for everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gary. Awesome to have you in the Writers' Lounge, and it's always just amazing to see you going gangbusters with the books. By the sounds of it, you're going to be a very busy gentleman for quite a while with current release, the previous release, and potential new releases. And not only that, just all-round kind of person that a lot of people are going to want to be able to talk to. So thank you for giving us your time, and all the very best. But yes, there we are, coming kind of to the end of episode 89.
And I believe that I have two quotes because you opened one from a couple of episodes ago.
Yes, that would be the case, yes.
All right, so I've got a kind of a one serious and one less optimistic than the other. So first of all, I'm giving you a quote from Thomas Huxley. Now, Thomas was in fact Thomas Henry Huxley, and he was an English biologist and anthropologist who specialised in comparative anatomy. And he actually died in 1895, so there you go. So Thomas's quote is, "We are prone to see what lies behind our eyes rather than what appears before them."
There's a little bit of a down the rabbit hole philosophical interpretation of projection, isn't it?
Yes, indeed it is. Now, there is one more interesting fact about, and there are many interesting facts about Thomas Henry Huxley that I'm thought his family and friends, but one of his grandchildren is Aldous Huxley.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, so the author of Brave New World and many other things. So, he actually wrote about 50 books, but often Brave New World is the one that people quote. So there you go.
It reminds me of another quote, and this doesn't count as my quote because this is just a reminder of a quote.
Okay.
And I can't remember how the quote goes, so I'm going to paraphrase here, but something along the lines of, we judge people by their actions, and we judge ourselves by our intentions. And I think that's follows that sort of train of thought where, what we think, how we see ourselves maybe behind our eyes is one thing, and, but then we judge people by what they do, whereas we probably do a lot that we didn't intend on doing. So yes, but I like that quote. That's a really cool one. So it sounds like philosophy and deeper meaning runs in the family there in the Huxleys.
Indeed. So what have you got for us?
Well, I've got one from an English poet. Seems there's so many cool poetry competitions in the news today, and it's English poet W.H. Auden. Pretty quick, simple and easy one, and yet kind of unsettling in a really, cool way. I've used the word cool a lot. I'm going to find another new word. Anyway, this is the quote. Evil is unspectacular and always human, and shares our bed and eats at our own table.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought that one's pretty good.
Yeah.
We're talking about that, the facade and the smiles with what might be behind, and
Yep.
and I think none of us would consider nature evil. Well, most times, but yeah, it's always human, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Which means it eats at our own tables, and
Yeah.
I have to technically disagree with sharing a bed right now. Can't say I've always disagreed with that notion, but that's for another topic as well.
All right, so let me finish with a more positive one, because I went down a whole lot of rabbit holes thinking about, people looking in plain sight, about the masks that people wear and all those kind of things. But then I thought, well, who is the real person behind the mask? And I've got a Marianne Williamson, who's one of my favourite people to quote. She's an American author, speaker, and in fact I think she ran for president over in the US, but she did a lot of work as a spiritual leader. The quote I'm sharing is, the more room you give yourself to express your true thoughts and feelings, the more room there is for your wisdom to emerge.
Well, that would kind of follow as being relatively obviously true, one would hope.
Yeah, so give yourself room to express your true thoughts and feelings. So no masks, no hiding in plain sight, whatever. Then there's more room for your wisdom to emerge. So you're not having to spend time trying to be something that you're not. So yeah,
and I look, we don't always have that luxury, of course, sometimes, but it is important to prioritise those moments in life and time, even if they're a couple of minutes a day, or for some of us sometimes only a couple of minutes a week, but where we can just be free of the shackles and just do what you love, just do what you really want to do, and without the care of the rest of the world. And that's how you're going to get to know yourself better. And of course, one would hope the better you get to know yourself, the closer you are to wisdom. I don't know if that's always true, but I'd like to think so.
Very good. Well, that comes to the end of quite a long episode, but such is life, people. Thank you so much for listening to us, and don't forget that we are, of course, on Twitter at Australian Books, Instagram and Threads. We are on LinkedIn and also on YouTube, and ABL celebrates and supports Aussie authors and readers. And did you know, of course, that you can share the love and support the podcast with a once-off or a monthly donation from as little as $3 a month. You can cancel anytime, no commitment. There's a little love heart on our podcast page, and you can click on that and throw some love our way. Or we have some fabulous merchandise. If you want to wear us proudly on your chest, on your book, around your drink bottle, any of those things, you can also find all of that over on AustralianBookLovers.com. What are we going to do for the tagline, Darren?
Well, I've now been sitting here, imagining myself walking down my street to perhaps go to the beach, and having all the neighbours standing at the front waving and smiling with those weird smiles where it's all happy, Darren, hello.
What was that weird movie that
there's been a few. Was it Valley of the Dolls was one?
No, I was thinking the one where they just had this one poor guy, the comedian.
Truman Show.
Truman Show, yes.
Yeah,
that was a bit weird.
Yeah, that's a bit weird. Bit of different concept, but just the idea of people smiling, and realistically, there's some evil stuff. They're summoning the devil back in the lounge room, but meanwhile they're holding the hose, and the puppy's playing on the front yard, and who would have known that puppy was actually the hound from hell? No, I don't know. So anyway, I thought maybe for the tagline, we could be those weird, creepy neighbours. We're very happy. Nothing's wrong. There's lots of evil behind us, but you're never going to know, or you will, because we're obviously super weird, but we don't know we're weird. So,
we don't know. We don't know that we're overplaying our cards.
Yeah, we think we're the perfect devil in disguise.
Beautiful. All right. So, Darren, what is there something that we need to take care of?
We'll just tell everyone, hey, remember to read more Aussie books. No, that's just tomato sauce coming out the front door. The dog's done it again.
And don't mind that smell. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, the pork used by Dave was a bit off. I'm not even taking that any further.
No, I think you'll be able to, edit some magic into that. So thanks, everybody. Stay tuned for a book review. And we have a little short reading also by Naomi Shippen, author of Far From Harm. That's it for episode 89.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us for episode 89, and look forward to hanging out with you episode 90. Take care, everybody.
Bye for now.
Far From Harm. Rick pulled the cap down over his eyes as he gazed out the tall sloping windows and onto the tarmac of Melbourne Airport. The place was crawling with holidaymakers, business people and gaggles of flight attendants striding along in their prim little uniforms, but he had been lucky enough to find a quiet spot in one of the generic cafes on the periphery of the action. There was always something relaxing about watching those big white planes glide in. He looked on as the baggage handler negotiated the unwieldy trailer, jackknifing as he drove it in circles, trying to get it into position. The sharp buzz of the Instagram alert drew his attention to the phone in front of him. Marco Vincenzo's Instagram page was full of boozy nights out, days at the footy, and in his latest contribution to intranet dross, his recent bush-bashing adventures. Pictures of Marco and his mates set up with tents, eskies and a campfire in front of a no camping sign, smiling for the camera and giving it the finger. The little twerp had even tagged the location in the shots. What a bloody idiot. The young ones didn't know what they were doing, giving away personal information like that. Information that could stick around forever and one day be used against them. Rick shut down the page and opened Anita's text message again. Flying out on Monday, you need to pick up Chloe. Just like that. So typical of that selfish bitch. Never a thought for anyone but herself. No doubt Chloe would put on a performance when he arrived. She wasn't going to be happy about leaving her posh house and her stuck-up friends and going back to the country with her dear old dad. But that was tough luck. She didn't have a choice in the matter. Rick called Anita's landline and Rose, the housekeeper, answered. Jennings' residence, said Rose in the affected voice she used to answer the phone. Her greeting rankled with Rick. It wasn't the Jennings residence, it was the Goodman residence. Oh, g'day, Rose, how are you? He didn't wait for an answer. Look, something's come up. Anita's taken off and I need to pick up Chloe. Rose was silent for a beat. What do you mean? She's taken off to Europe with some bloke and I don't know when she's coming back. Another pregnant pause. What? Are you sure? Yes, said Rick, I'm sure. But I don't understand. I know she was thinking about a holiday, but... Rick cut her off. Look, I don't understand it myself, Rose, but you know how she gets when she has an idea in her head. Rose let out a sigh. What am I going to tell Chloe? Just tell her Mum's got away for a while and I'm coming to pick her up. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. Rick ended the call and tapped up 4 separate text messages. He put his sunglasses on and headed down the gleaming white floors and back to the taxi rank at the entrance. Without breaking his stride, he dropped the phone into a silver rubbish bin by the front door. He got in a taxi and told the driver that he would pay cash.
Dark Mode by Ashley Kalajian-Blunt. This is thought-provoking and dark. Kalajian-Blunt has delved into the dark web and delivered a slice of the underbelly to suburban Sydney. It's not for the faint-hearted, this book, but if you're prepared for some gory details, you'll find some incredibly powerful prose that shares some very relatable fears. We follow Reagan Carson's slow initiation onto the web and watch her emerge from her self-imposed internet exile. This is a wonderful exploration of relationships, good, bad and everywhere in between, as well as a look at some very real issues. The slow unpacking of Reagan's traumatic past, the threads of her fraught relationship with her mother, and her changing friendship with Min all compel you to read beyond just solving the puzzle of the killer. It's well-paced, artfully conceived, and cleverly delivered. A great read.
Let's meet again, where magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.